Hey, Nika, did you happen to see this segment on MLB Now, the Thinking Man show with Jon Heyman? He went viral on Friday with his Ohtani thoughts after the Padres-Dodgers series concluded in Los Angeles. Did you happen to catch this video?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, Jon Heyman went viral for this exchange, and this was posted on the MLB Now X account. And I'm glad they posted it and I'm glad I didn't miss it because this is the kind of stuff we live for here on the KeNikka Sports Show, to be honest, is when we get opportunities like this to hold the mainstream media accountable. That is what we call gold here at the KeNikka Sports Show. This is what we want. Unfortunately, this is one of the most idiotic takes I think I've heard in a long time when it comes to the establishment media meatheads, as I like to call them.
Okay.
And Jon Heyman just got moved to the front of the line. You know, I like the guy. I'm not going to sit here and deny that I have a personal vendetta against him or anything. I think he's probably a great guy to sit and talk baseball with for a really long time. Like, you could probably never run out of topics to talk about and argue about, quite frankly, because this would probably be one of them. But this is our show, so it's going to be one-sided, and you're going to get to hear our thoughts about Jon Heyman's thoughts. But before we do, let's set the table. This is Jake Peavy, who used to pitch for the Padres, of course, and Jon Heyman, New York Post writer. Steve Phillips, GM. He, of course, was a GM for the New York Mets once upon a time. And Thad Levine. It is Thad, not Tad, and the H is not silent. And I don't know if it's Levine or Levine, but I'm going with Thad Levine. Fair?
Fair enough.
All right, Thad Levine. They're discussing the series of events that led to last night's benches clearing exchange in the Padres-Dodgers game. We're going to hear from everyone before we hear from Heyman. Let's roll the clip.
That's some bad blood, no question about it. By the way, 100-mile-per-hour pitch that hit Ohtani in the shoulder, his pitching shoulder, oh, by the way. And so, you know, we've got stars getting hit. Tatis hit 3 times in the 7 games of the series. He's been hit 5 times between last year and this year by the Dodgers themselves, 6 times in his career. What's going on with this situation?
Can you pause
You know,
it?
I don't think.
All right, before Jake Peavy gets into this, I just want to remind people, we posted a separate video on this topic already where we kind of talked about what they're talking about, that the Dodgers have been throwing and hitting Tatis a lot. And oh, by the way, they said he got hit 6 times in the last total in his career by the Dodgers, and 2 of them last year and 3 this year. So think about that. It's getting worse. And this doesn't even take into account the other video we posted of Joe Kelly, because he didn't hit Fernando in those at-bats, but he was throwing at his head 2 pitches in a row on purpose. And then he, you know, gets Tatis rattled and gets him striking out looking because Tatis doesn't know if there's a crazy guy on the mound throwing a ball at his head again.
Exactly.
Anyways, just wanted to get that out of the way. Not only was it the 6 times he's been hit by the pitch, but there was also those 2 other from Joe Kelly. So,
and he just got hit on his forearm not that long ago.
Well, he got hit on his forearm. That was against the Pirates at the end of April, early May. And that event itself has been linked to some of Fernando's power struggles.
So the guy is hesitant.
Yeah.
He has a PTSD probably coming up to the plate.
Well, a lot of people are throwing inside on him. And, like, I think it is part of the MO, but I don't think that means you should be able to hit the guy either.
No, absolutely
There's a
not.
fine line.
Yes.
So, all right, let's hear what Jake Peavy has to say here.
Okay.
I think Dave Roberts is right with the intent. I think there's some intent on the Ohtani and the Vasquez, but I think it's been warranted. You cannot have guys hit with fastballs, period. And like Mike Schultz said, intent or not, you can't hit a guy 3 times in an 8-game period when it's the best guys and not think that you're going to have some guys have to wear it. Look, I didn't like the Suarez ball being up. I think it got the elbow pad. But again, when that starts to happen, you start getting control of your guys going, hey,
you can pause it for a second. We're going to see Ohtani here get hit. I think that was the music in the background.
Yes.
They started playing the clip. But yeah, you're going to see what he's talking about here when Suarez retaliated against Ohtani, and he mentions he thinks he got hit on the elbow pad, but you can see it kind of where it's going to hit him here. So you can continue.
When you start getting control of your guys going, hey, pitching in's one thing, but you can't pitch in at the expense of hurting other guys.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I think intent is secondary.
This is Thad Levine.
Okay. I agree. You have to agree what they are saying. You know, you shouldn't be hitting guys whether they're Ohtani or not. You should not be hitting players. Period.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about hit by pitch a lot on this show and just how we wish there was stricter penalties
For the pitchers.
on the pitchers for hitting batters, especially when injury is involved. I feel like it's harsh but cruel, in a way, but also something needs to change in order to enact the change that you need to see.
Right,
And-
because it forces the pitcher to work on his mechanics and location versus just throwing hard.
Well, we know hit by pitch are up across the board,
Yes.
across baseball. And one of the reasons for that is because of the velocity chase. The chase for velocity
Thank you, mainstream media.
also leads to less control. And it's becomes well, it doesn't matter where it's going. They're still not going to be able to hit it. They're still going to guess wrong.
Well, it matters when you get a hit on your body.
Yeah, and it's put a lot more great players on the shelf. Bryce Harper, Blake Snell did him a couple years ago. I'll never forget it. And had to put him on the shelf with a broken hand bone. We saw Mookie Betts last year miss time, and at the same time, what Jake Peavy and what Thad Levine here are also saying is that this onus is not on the Padres in any way. This has happened because of the fact that the Dodgers pitchers have not been able to control the inside corner of the plate with command. They're crossing the line. And to your point, I just have to wonder if it is something that is ordered on purpose. It seems to be an MO on Tatis to pitch him high and tight, because then he becomes susceptible to low and away. And I would imagine that that's true of a lot of people.
Oh, sure, but the Dodgers pick Tatis all the time. They pick on him constantly.
Well, and where are the balls at Cal Raleigh's head, by example,
Exactly.
to rattle him and get him off? You don't see it. They just let him hit home runs.
Yeah, but the Dodgers are on a different.
But you're telling me
wavelength.
this is all strategy to just get one guy out. It seems like it's a little bit more animosity and heated and either directed or, it doesn't seem like a clean brand of baseball like Cal Raleigh's getting with the Mariners. And
right.
You just have to wonder why. And
It's more of a malicious type.
it does seem that way, doesn't it? Well, let's finish up Thad's thoughts here before we move on to the main event.
All right.
Mentioned it. He's been hit 5 times, 4 times by fastballs. And anytime you hit a guy of the star caliber of Ohtani, it's going to get attention. I think that's what's happening here. Star players getting hurt is bad for baseball.
It is, and yet, here we are, and they went back and forth, and there was no action taken by the umpires in a way that could stop this dead in its tracks.
All right,
That
let's
is
pause.
true.
Let's just set up. This is going to be the main event here. This is Jon Heyman of the New York Post, and Steve Phillips is turning it over to him here, and he's saying the umpires let this situation get out of control. On one hand, we complain about umpires having too much power in the game, and here you have a network establishment meathead saying the opposite, that they don't have enough power apparently to keep these two teams in check.
Didn't they issue warnings the game before?
They did, and then they didn't eject the Dodger pitcher
Right.
after he hit a Padre in that game.
So you can't have it both ways.
It seems like if anyone let the game get away from them, it was the Dodgers and their pitchers more than anything. I don't think there's anything wrong with the strategy of pitching inside on a guy, but you have to do it with a fine line of control, and they did not do that. And they owe them. If they can't do that, then yes, other teams are going to throw at your best players too, especially when it's happening to our best players.
Right.
It's only natural. But Jon Heyman brings this to a new level of whatever.
You want to play it?
Yeah, let's play it.
In the up to no good game, I am always of a believer that everybody is up to no good. The thrower, the pusher, the talkers at the end of the game. That's human nature. We're not a good people. Let's be fair about this.
Wow. Pause that for me. Tell me how you really feel, Jon Heyman. Humanity is not. We are not a good people. We are. This is.
Projecting much?
Well, it makes you wonder, when you look at what's happening with world events, and we're not going to get into anything political or anything about world events right now, but if you do look at them and you see them, a lot of them are caused by what he just admitted.
Yeah.
Is that we are not a good people. If we were, we wouldn't be killing each other
Of course.
over land.
That's humanity's nature. Constantly fighting, whether that's on the field or outside the field.
Well, it's a pretty sad thing to say, but I don't necessarily disagree with him here. So I do assume the worst in people, including a lot of the Dodgers in this instance. We did a whole story about this already, how we think Dave Roberts does this on purpose and tells his guys to throw at Fernando and to rattle him. It's psychological warfare. All right, let's continue on because it's only going to get worse.
Humanity,
I love how they all act
all
all
innocent. Understand. I will say this about Suarez. He obviously did it on purpose, and he declined comment. I'll give him a little credit. I usually don't like people declining comment, but it's better than lying, and we all know that he was up to no good there. As I said, he was one of many up to no good, but at least he didn't lie about it, so I give him credit there.
Well, credit where credit's due.
I understand that it's a star for a star, an eye for an eye. Ohtani is on a different level. We can't hit Ohtani. You just can't. He is a phenomenon.
What is he made of,
out
glass?
there for a week. They are filled. It is exciting from pitch one of the.
Pause it. Yeah, this is, again, we're going to disagree with John on this because
I agree with the first part, but the second part just takes it to another level. I
agreed with what he said about humanity.
Yes.
And the fact that he can admit that about humanity and then has the audacity to turn around and say this, it's like, it's so hypocritical.
Yeah,
because,
biggest hypocrite right there on that panel.
Well, and he's not even addressing the elephant in the room, which is Dave Roberts. And Dave Roberts is the manager of the Dodgers. And if the Dodgers don't want Ohtani getting thrown at, then don't hit our players in the first place and make that known that if you hit somebody, not only am I going to come and take your ass right out of the game, no questions asked, I'm going to suspend you and send you down to AAA or whatever, but make the threat warranted enough so that it doesn't happen. Manage your team, manage your men.
That's not Dave Roberts.
Oh, no.
That's not Dave Roberts' response to anything like that.
He never accepts that responsibility. And that makes me wonder, why do these people think he's such a good manager?
Because he can hide behind other players.
If he didn't want this to happen, quite frankly, it wouldn't happen.
No.
That's what a good manager does.
That's not what we got.
All right. So let's finish up Heyman's point so we can roast him.
End of the game, everybody stays in LA, so you know it's a big deal. Just can't do it for the good of the game. Find another star to hit. That's not the guy to hit.
For the good of the game.
I'm sorry. So yeah, I cannot hit Ohtani, find another star to hit? What kind of statement is that?
Meanwhile, they're going to just, plunk Tatis over and over and over again, knowing that, we can't hit Ohtani for the good of the game. Sorry. Wink, wink. Not going to happen, John.
But
you're living in a dream world, fantasy world.
Okay, that's one part. Another part is like why another player will be taking punishment because you can't hit Ohtani.
Yeah. Hey,
So
can we get a
nobody else?
microphone on Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and
How
ask
do
them
they
how do
feel
they
about
feel
it?
about this?
Exactly.
Hey, the meathead establishment, Jon Heyman, says that your unicorn, Shohei Ohtani, is untouchable, Mr. Glass over there, which means future retaliation attempts after your bullpen fails to command control of the strike zone and hits other players. Future attempts at retaliation will be taken at you and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman instead.
So good
how
luck
do
with
you
that.
feel about that? Comment, please. Why is it so hard for anyone in the media to ask anyone these questions?
Feelings.
Why is it so hard to raise these questions even just on a panel on MLB Now? It doesn't require that much level of deep thinking here. We're talking sports.
Well, some sports analysis is a lot better than the mainstream media when it comes to politics and governance, because they hold the panel more accountable than we hold our politicians.
For the greater good. Where have we heard that before in history and having it turned out well? I saw this on Friday and I knew we were going to talk about it because we did a whole long piece about Ohtani last week and the whole Padres, Dodgers
Pitching.
retaliation and hit by pitches, and the fact that this has been a pattern with the Dodgers against Fernando in recent memory. If you want to go back far enough, I'm sure that things do not look pretty. The Padres have had some crap teams until Tatis came along and Manny came along. It changed the culture. My question to Jon Heyman, I totally understand the point you're making about Shohei Ohtani and how if he gets hit by a pitch and broke a hand or something and had to miss 2 months of the season while he brings in record draw and record ratings. We see what Caitlin Clark does for WNBA, and Shohei Ohtani does the same for Major League Baseball worldwide. He is that much of a draw.
So you even have more reason to protect him by telling your pitching staff to pitch.
I know, but doesn't Fernando deserve some of the same treatment?
Of course.
Isn't baseball
Anybody.
better when he's healthy and playing at a high level?
Imagine if this
he's
happened
so
to Judge.
exciting.
Imagine if this was Yankees.
Yeah, Judge or Cal. Imagine if Cal Raleigh got hurt. Record-setting season stopped in its tracks by retaliation pitch.
It's a horrible headline.
The double standards here are just ridiculous. And at the end of the day, if you don't want Ohtani to get hit, then start to look at your own players in the face, start to look in the mirror, and start to talk to them about learning to pitch with control, because you can't afford to lose Ohtani if you're the Dodgers.
No.
So therefore, your pitchers can't afford to hit other players. And guess what we know that means, Nika? The Dodgers bullpen is going to get rocked more. No one can give in to Jon Heyman here and say like, oh, well, I guess he's right. I guess we shouldn't throw at Ohtani because for the greater good. The whole intent behind retaliation is because it is to go after the best player. And as a warning, no one threw at Ohtani's hands or head. I mean, the shoulder's getting close, but
Well, like Pee Wee said, he got hit on the protector.
But he also got hit on the leg earlier in the week after Tatis got hit in game 1.
Okay.
So this was in game 4. And, it was at the end of a game. The Padres were up 5-0. Oh, and let's not forget that no one talks about this. Thank you for reminding myself. Freeman and Mookie were already pulled in this game. So there was no opportunity even for the Padres to retaliate potentially against one of them in this
So
situation.
what does it tell you about Roberts?
Roberts
management?
doesn't
He knew.
value Mookie and Freddie as much as he values Ohtani. I don't know what it says about it, but it tells me that he felt like the Padres would retaliate.
Right, but so he leaves the best player on the field, but he takes 2 other ones just in case.
Right, and makes it real clear who the choice is of who we're going to hit. So there is no questions asked,
Yeah.
And instead, here's the establishment media asking questions when there doesn't need to be any questions asked.
Where were the questions asked when Joe Kelly was aiming at Tatis's head?
He was. We saw him. We saw the post from John Boy. We saw him mock him and taunt him afterwards.
Yeah, where's the talking heads about that?
They forgot about something that happened less than a year and a half ago. It was August of 2023. Shocking. All right. Well, this panel was not enlightening for the greater good.
Of the game?
Thanks to Jake Peavy and Thad Levine for standing up for what's right in this instance, which is, you're going to hit our best player. We're going to hit yours. All's fair in love and war, an eye for an eye. And, you have to defend yourselves as a team. And that's what this is. That's what the Padres were doing.
They were defending themselves.
End of story.